Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, as President Joe Biden announces the withdrawal of all US troops from Afghanistan, Afghan women fear the return of the Taliban, which could see the end of female education. Also, as attempts are made to revive the Iranian nuclear deal, our correspondent in Tehran reports on how crippling US sanctions are impacting women's rights. And how the Belgian city of Liege is taking a tough stand on street harassment, with those found guilty facing the risk of a year in jail. But first, and US President Joe Biden's announcement that he will withdraw American troops from Afghanistan is causing much concern among Afghan women. As the Taliban's control grows in the country, many women feel that without US protection, they could lose their rights that they gained since the group was toppled in 2001, including their biggest achievement, the right to an education. During the Taliban's rule from 1996 to 2001, women were banned from taking most jobs or being educated. They effectively became prisoners in their own homes. Emerald Maxwell has more.
They're no longer required to wear a burqa. They hold 28% of seats in parliament, and most crucially, they're allowed to go to school. But women and girls in Kabul fear the US's withdrawal could mean the clock has rolled back to the days of Taliban rule, when their rights effectively ceased to exist.
I'm extremely worried that if the troops leave, the Taliban's influence could increase. That may restrict women's participation in society.
Zainab runs a bookshop, something that wouldn't have been possible between 1996 and 2001, when women were barred from the workplace. They also risked being publicly lashed or stoned to death for breaking Taliban laws.
As
an Afghan girl, I can easily study and work with the current government in power. But if the US troops leave the country and the civil war happens, or if the Taliban take power, I won't be able to go out.
The Taliban's influence in the country is now greater than at any point since their deposal. With peace talks between the Islamist group and the Afghan government faltering, fighting has surged over the past year. The UN says violence against women and children has increased by 37%.
Living in a timeline where we are not anywhere with the negotiations, or we haven't received an agreement with the Taliban, would not be responsible, and it would can cost us losing everything we worked and fought together in the past 20 years.
US President Biden says that despite the army's withdrawal, his administration will continue to support the peace talks and assist international efforts to train the Afghan military. The Taliban have vowed to reimpose strict Sharia law in Afghanistan, as they've been trying to do in the large swathes of the countryside they already control. The Taliban say they respect women's rights, but only in accordance with Islamic law. Activists say their interpretation of it hasn't changed since the days of their regime.
Now, another foreign policy change of direction by the Biden administration is its diplomatic attempt to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Yet some of those who oppose an American return to talks are also highly vocal in their support of Iranian women's rights, the country suffering from crippling economic sanctions after Donald Trump withdrew from the agreement. But nearly 3 years on, and many women in Iran say those American sanctions have only made their struggle for rights and freedoms all the more difficult. France 24's Reza Sayed reports from Tehran.
In the Islamic Republic of Iran, overcoming conservative social norms to become a woman business owner has its challenges. But for the past 15 years, Elham Bigdeli has successfully run a company that imports paper products from Europe and helped other women with their careers. There is a reason, she says, that 6 out of her 8 employees are women.
Since I'm a woman, naturally I like to help other women make progress and advance. If there's anything I can do to help them improve, I'll do it. This is something I want.
But Big Deli says ever since the United States imposed sanctions against Iran, buying products from Europe has been harder than ever.
A lot of the companies that we worked with no longer accepted working with Iran. Their main problem was transferring money. It was a natural outcome of sanctions.
Big Deli is among many here who say sanctions have made life difficult for ordinary Iranians, especially women. When the U.S. imposed sanctions in 2018, one of its stated goals was to help boost democracy and human rights. Reyhaneh Tabatabai is a veteran journalist who's been imprisoned 4 times for working for reformist papers who pushed for women's rights in Iran. She also campaigned for Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, who promised more rights for women. Tabatabai says women have made progress, but the inflation and unemployment that came with sanctions undermined those gains.
When a society faces economic challenges, these challenges affect women first. A person who, due to the economic situation, is forced to work in multiple places to place a piece of bread in front of her children will not listen to me saying divorce rights must be equal, custody rights must improve, or women should have the right to ride a bicycle, because they have bigger problems than that.
Despite the economic challenges, Elham Big Deli says she has kept her business running and her staff employed.
With my personality, when you restrict me and block my way, I become motivated to be more successful and find solutions. For me, it's a challenge.
Until sanctions are lifted and the economy improves here, the economic challenges for Iran's women will likely continue. But so will their fight, they say, for more rights and freedoms.
Now, the Belgian city of Liege has spearheaded a new scheme aimed at protecting women from street harassment. Local police having created a new brigade to patrol the city's streets and intervene if need be. And those who get convicted risk facing up to 1 year behind bars.
This young woman walking through the streets of Liege is no ordinary member of the public. She's an undercover police officer, part of a new unit created to clamp down on street harassment. Some distance behind her, 3 male colleagues keep close watch. The operation takes the police officers to a park where the policewoman herself bears witness to a possible case of harassment, a boy who frightened a girl by suddenly standing in front of her.
Monsieur, la fille a tellement eu peur qu'elle s'est reculée de vous.
Vous avez fait une action qui l'a mis mal à l'aise, qui lui a fait peur.
J'ai fait ça, elle a reculé à 10 mètres.
Justement, parce qu'elle a eu peur, monsieur.
The inspector calls the boy's parents and explains what the law has to say on the matter.
I didn't want her to feel bad. That wasn't my intention.
Can this make you reflect on what you did?
Yes, yes.
The victim approves the police method.
Yes, I think it's great. I'd say it doesn't happen enough. My friends, all girls, this happens a lot.
Every day, a dozen police statements are handed out. The idea came from young women who serve as police officers, themselves victims of street harassment.
We have colleagues here, many of them quite young, who are often the target of harassment when they're not wearing their uniforms, whether they're off on a run during their lunch break, or even in their own private lives. Like many women, they've learned to hold it all in, and I don't recognize how inappropriate this behavior is anymore.
The city's prosecutor department has encouraged the police to pursue this zero-tolerance approach. This magistrate believes it's important to clamp down on all incidents to avoid more serious crimes.
It all begins with a few words, and then maybe it evolves into an inappropriate act or gesture, and then maybe even worse. This is the behavior that causes victims to have this feeling of insecurity because they don't know the person in front of them, so they don't know how far he'll actually take it.
Depending on how serious the incident is, people who receive a statement can risk up to 1 year in jail. This pilot scheme could soon be expanded to other Belgian cities.
And finally, the first black woman conductor to study here in France is now being seen as one of the young leading lights of international classical music. Glass Meccano hails from Venezuela and shot to prominence last year after taking part in a Paris competition for female conductors. Camille Nedelik has the story.
Full of magnetic energy and passion, Blas Meccano's unique style was evident as she directed this symphony by Verdi at a competition in Paris for female orchestral conductors. Less than 5% of conductors in France are women.
Siempre soñé con estar aquí, pero nunca pensé que se iba a hacer realidad, y de repente llegar y ver la Filarmonía de París, dije, wow, estoy aquí y este es mi momento, nunca lo voy a olvidar.
But making it all the way to Paris was no mean feat. The participation fee is €150, but in Venezuela the monthly minimum wage is less than €1. And Meccano had to also juggle her music with her legal studies.
Mi mamá me llama y me dice, Glass, abrimos una frutería, puedes reunir dinero para ir a París. Yo recuerdo que yo trabajaba en las mañanas hasta en la tarde y en la noche estudiaba con mi maestra.
She came out on top out of a pool of 200 candidates. But then she had to overcome yet another obstacle as all flights in Venezuela were suspended due to the coronavirus pandemic.
On s'est mis en contact avec l'ambassade de France à Caracas qui nous a aidés à trouver un vol humanitaire espagnol passant par Madrid. Et elle est arrivée à Paris, le concours était déjà commencé. Ça prouve qu'elle a un courage et une détermination incroyables.
The young conductor doesn't speak French or English.
Do character, okay?
78.
So communication with the orchestra was initially difficult, but they were quickly won over by her enthusiasm.
En parlant vraiment juste musique, on se retrouve parce que c'est totalement universel comme langage. Et en fait, elle s'est très très bien adaptée. C'était vraiment enthousiasmant musicalement. Ce qu'elle a fait, c'était inattendu, c'était plein de fougue.
Meccano is now part of the Regional Conservatory of Paris, where she continues her musical studies.
And that's it for now. You can also connect with us via our Facebook page, that of course being France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. So until our next show, bye for now.